If I can call this meeting to order, and pre-apologize, I have a bit of a killer headache, so I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer tonight, but I'm going to slog through it here. So approval of the agenda, do we have any last minute agenda changes? Okay, so approval of the agenda as presented. Councillor Crop, Councillor Erickson, moved and seconded, thank you very much. All those in favor? Contrary, carries. Adoption of the minutes, section 3, item A, public hearing record for September 24th. Motion received, please.
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Erickson moving, Councillor Smith seconding. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Thank you. Item 3B, regular meeting of council held September 24th. Motion to adopt the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Councillor Crop moving, and seconder, Councillor Zidle. Thank you. Questions or comments pertaining to minutes? All those in favor? Thank you. Quality minutes again. We're fortunate to have with us two delegations tonight. The first one is Hope Brigade Days, and leading that charge is Ms. Lori Isbister. I almost said Swain because I actually went to high school with Lori, and yeah, when I saw her, I thought Lori Swain.
I would
No,
have
that's
answered you.
True, but you've been married long enough, I should get it. Yeah.
Can I speak from here?
Sure, if you like. I mean, probably next to Councillor Smith, or probably a little better.
All right.
You're photogenic. Maybe the camera can pick something up there from.
So I'm here to give you a little bit of a summary of Hope Brigade Days and how successful the event was. Of course, this year was our 50th. We had record attendance this year with over 7,000 people, which is absolutely amazing for Hope. Overall, very successful, but specifically I'm here to report on the success of the parade because that's what the District of Hope focused their funding at. So we had, of course, we had the Cossacks, we had Neezer come with some jugglers, stilt walkers, that kind of thing. We had a couple floats come, we had a couple bands come, and the overall response was absolutely overwhelming. People were just thrilled. I've got some testimonies from, this is from the Read Write Society, and I also need to mention the parade. It had the youth so excited to see the new and exciting things at the parade, they all forgot to take pictures. And to see them so engaged and just being kids again. Forget their problems and life for a little bit. I'm talking jumping around, clapping and waving and just in awe. The Dragons and the Seattle Cossacks and the Stilt Walk people were the highlight for them. They were as excited as the little kids. Anyways, I'll leave you to your day, but felt it was important that we knew that. So that just, I was able to go watch the parade this year, which I don't normally get to do. And just seeing the people interact with, because the Chinese lion dancers would go and they would interact with the kids, and it was really, people were very, very excited about the parade. So moving forward, I would really like to encourage us to continue that kind of funding into the parade. The Seattle Cossacks were phenomenal. There was a bus of 32 people that came from Puyallup specifically just to see Hope Brigade Days, and they happened to be all Eagle members from Puyallup, and they didn't know Hope even had an Eagles Club. So they seen the float, followed them to the lounge, sat there all afternoon, spent money in there. But so it was just really, really good. And the other huge positive thing that this is my most successful moment of the weekend, is the Vancouver Traveling Band, the Chinese lion dancers, and the Seattle Cossacks all went up to the Fraser Hope Lodge after the parade, and they performed. They brought the residents outside who couldn't, get to the parade, and others that couldn't get outside to the windows, and they were up there for about a half an hour or so and performed. And I actually got a phone call from the director of the Vancouver Traveling Band thanking me for putting that together, because they were just through the moon seeing the smiles on their faces. So to me, that makes it all worth it. So I just want to say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because it certainly made the event that much more special, having that portion of the parade. So I've got some little gifts for you.
Oh,
And this is in no particular order, just by the way you're sitting. They're t-shirts. Thank you very much. With the, we had hand-carved pencils done by Randy Swoop. And they are a Brigade feet. Thank you, Lori. Thank you very
They're
much.
in a particular order, Lori. Finally, they're in a particular order.
well, those are pretty cool, I gotta say.
Thank you.
Extra large too, you were thinking. Large would not, well, that's nice.
That is so cool. And we got one for John because he comes at every meeting.
Collector's edition.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I can take care of this one.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Oh, just a thank you. I'm very appreciative of all the good work you and your group did. And of course, the service clubs that worked alongside you when the weekend came about. That's always good because everyone gets on board at that point. But I think the core group was actually fairly small, wasn't it? It was like 13, 14 people.
Oh, it's smaller than that actually.
Yeah.
But we couldn't do it without the help of all the other user groups. Like there's no way. It doesn't, the small committee or the board that does Brigade Days couldn't do it with all the extra support. It's not possible. It takes a community to put an event on of that size.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Okay, Councilor.
When, just for the record on it,
Yes.
do you know when your AGM is going to be so more people can come to show up and hopefully take part?
It'll be on October 30th at the Eagles Hall at 7 p.m. And that's going in the paper for the next 2 weeks.
Good. Just for people that want to get involved, a lot of people see success going on, they want to hop on board, so
Yeah,
hopefully
that's
get
good.
more members for you guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, I mean, even if you don't want to commit to being on the board, being a member and being a part of it is huge. You know, even if you just want to volunteer for a certain segment of the weekend, it helps out a lot. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. That was very successful. And the weather wasn't even that good, so you figure if you get 7,000 people with lackluster weather.
Well, and you know, we did have a few little hiccups because of the volume of people that we didn't anticipate. If it had been sunny, I'm afraid to even know, you know, maybe we might have had to have more security, that kind of thing. Because Saturday night with April Wine was huge. And yeah, so we have a few little growing pains to figure out with that, but it's nothing that's fixable.
So the weather might have been a blessing in a cloudy disguise.
I kind of think so. But the food trucks had record numbers as well, so I mean, overall, it was a really, really successful weekend.
Thank you. So our second delegation we have here is the Communities in Bloom group with Mr. Victor Smith and Teresa Williams. Two key movers and shakers in our community.
I'm just a photographer.
Oh, I thought you were. Every good event needs a photographer.
So, we're the longest people in the community move provincially going. And every year we achieve higher and higher marks. We're so well done. But, it's like you said, I mean, it's because we work with the Lions, we work with the Rotary, you know, all service clubs in town. The Masons went out and cleaned the Hope sign, they pressure washed and painted it. You know, so everybody's done a part to make it happen. So it's not by ourselves. It's the school, the garden thing was a huge thing this year. That was, everybody's at awe at our garden. We're so lucky to have that. So I really appreciate that the mayor and council stepped up and did a great job in that. It was very well done. So what they do is we get a report card every year from these people, and they tell about recommendations, what we've done. They always start with a positive and then try and tweak it to what we can do to improve, which is a good way to be because we're all volunteers. And they were also very impressed with the fact that his worship was always available, and also John Forleski always has his office open to us, you know, to help us out with communities in Bloom when the judges come. And that's very big and impressive when they go to a town that will receive that well. So the fisheries is working on down by Bristol Island there. So Communities in Bloom has recommended that we get on board with them and do some trees trees and shrubs to be a part of it, so it's part of Hope staying at A, so I think it's great. We, of course, have had a funding for the last 4 years, got one more year to go on our funding with the district, which is a good way to do it because we won't keep coming back all the time to get reviewed and that. We've had other people this year have given us money for different projects too, which we're very fortunate to have. But anyway, I will leave this with you so you can show it to everybody. So you see our book, everybody has a copy that we produced, and this is our profile book. And so it's our profile book. So this, you know, you look at the picture and you gotta say, we live here. We look at this every day. We gotta appreciate it more what we have. We live in that. And in the back, this is all the volunteers. A lot of our, well, not all of them, a lot of our volunteers all together. And that's so, because that's our biggest asset are our people. Like, everybody does it for free, all this stuff, and lots of times we showed up our own weed eaters, our own gas, our own saws, everything else. And yeah. So the book here tells a lot about the hope, you know, our population. We try to do it. We have an excellent event that we partnered with Panago. We go out and work at the berm. We usually have about 16, 18 people show up, and we weed for an hour, and then we go to Panago after, and they provide us dinner. We call it Weed and Feed. And it's quite a successful program. Doesn't cost much. Also, it shows the years of that. So the one year in 2012, we went national. The trouble with national is, and actually Crystal, Scott's wife, was then, it costs us too much to go. So Crystal and I talked about going, but there's no budget left if we spend it. So we spend our money on the projects, and that's why we stay provincial. So, I mean, it would be more grand than that, but by the time we go back east in New Brunswick, there'd be no funds left. So that's why we stay provincial, and we get more involved, and that's why we have people all come to it, because that's a big event, so it's kind of cool. They look forward to it. Our chainsaw carving event, which is a very big event, and very well supported by the district too. Next year will be our largest chainsaw carving event. Last year we had 8, this next year we'll have 15 carvers. So when everybody went on holidays July 1st, my wife and I went down the state to meet carvers at the show, because Mark Pope and his wife were up, and so the youngest guy at the East Coast is coming this year. He's all stoked to come here to carve in Hope. He's, you know, and he says, I got invited. Can you believe it? I'm going to Hope. But I mean, that's a great every part of it. So the photography here was all by people in town who have donated the pictures and everything else. Next week on 6th Avenue, across from the CN Bear that we did, the other side you'll see the concrete blocks will arrive this week. We're going to put some of the plants in this year. And we'll finish it off next year with some more funding in that area we have. So both sides of the streets will be done. So that side where the trees are, we're all natural rhododendrons and stuff like that. We plant everything that's low maintenance because we work with Kevin at the district here. You know, we want to make sure that we're all on board the same page. We're not building something that's going to cost money to look after. Also, the Mile Zero, which will be finished this next year coming up. There'll be a pole there with different places in the world all to go. And Rasmus Chabot did that. So we've got, instead of North Pole, it'll be Santa's Workshop, you know, a little bit of humor. And then the place in Norway, it's actually a small town. It's where Rasmus was born. So people from Norway, why would that little town be up there in Hope? Because we have history. And also it'll be solar powered. So it'll be like nothing thing like this. So we're always thinking of cost and everything else. And we hope that, you know, because people love those Mile Zero to a part of it. So this was that chainsaw carving, what it was working on when it was finished. You have to realize that on the day, Saturday, 3 o'clock, this is from Ryan Cook out front here, he found out his father passed away. So he had to take some time, an hour and a half, went back, and he said, I knew my dad would want me to finish it, and he did. And he was just here this summer, got a picture with this little guy who was just born about a month after. Got his picture here in Hope, so it's on Facebook showing he's in Hope with the picture now. So. Anyway, it's an excellent book, I think. I hope we did a good job. We have the info center and everything else. This thing was greatly helped because of Advantage Hope. Helped hugely with us in that. So I hope we've done a good job for you guys. So anyway, we have our 5 bloom, and I'd like to get a picture of yourself, Wilton, so we can post it on our Facebook because we do appreciate the town, all the part they take on this stuff.
Make sure you give me a
Hey, you're a good supporter. Dusty comes out and helps with those carving.
anytime.
Yeah.
Smile. Thanks, guys.
So this will go up in the district here and take the other one down, so if you could.
Sounds good.
we'll leave it
Thank
with
you, Victor.
Thank you very much.
Man with a good name, Victor.
Very much helping part of that too is also Scott, lots of times loves his tool, it's handy. And Dusty also welds the bases in and everything else for us, which is really a big project. They went this, so we do appreciate everybody's a part of this to make this happen, so. Anyway, this year should be next year should be a really good year for us, so. Thanks very much, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you both for the great work with your group. You're a huge blessing to the community, and your group will never wilt. It seems to always keep going.
Well, we have an app that we'll have out there for showing when you can just take a picture of your plant. It'll tell you what it is. So even Dusty could actually grow something at home without his wife.
I sit there and look at rock faces with trees on them and go, how does that grow there? And I can't grow there even if I tried.
Oh, thanks. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, item 5A, we have the results from our cannabis survey. And a special thank you to Ms. Bellingham for intense amount of work in entering all the data. Thank you to the community for responding. We had a good number of folks respond, and maybe we can get Ms. Bellingham to report on this particular topic.
Yeah, so following the direction of council, as indicated at the August 27th regular council meeting, we pretty much mirrored the survey that Abbotsford had done with the addition of a few questions. We quickly got that produced, and Erica Press was able to produce 3,100 copies for us, of which 2,983 were provided to Canada Post. They had returned about 117 that weren't needed to be distributed because part of Dogwood Valley was in there and we knew that wasn't within our municipal boundaries. And they did collect a few at the end of the day when people put their flyers in the garbage. They sort of went through that, and she said there was very few surveys, maybe one or two in there, so the better part was pleased to say that people were taking them home and completing them. So we did get a total of 647 surveys returned, which I think is a pretty good turnaround for a short window of time. Total costs expended through printing and Canada Post was $1,673.07. That does not account for any of the staff time. We did have to do additional folding once they were produced, so there was quite a number of staff one day just folding it into 3, putting the stapler in there, and based on, you can see all the red on there with the entry is, I've incurred at least 7 full days of data entry. And I do apologize in advance if there's some technical errors, because I was taking and entering surveys in right up until agendas were being printed and produced. So we feel overall it was a really good return on the survey.
Yeah, sounds good. Some very interesting comments in there. And I know that'll give the next council some tools to make healthy decisions on this issue. So it was a worthwhile exercise, I would feel. Thanks so much. And should we receive that in motion form?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second, Mr. Bible. Thanks, Mr. Medlock. All those in favor? So item B, the school board was at a council meeting, as everyone recalls, and there was a request to name a street by the Silver Creek Elementary Marv Cope Way. And my thought would be, and obviously this is a council decision, not a willful own decision, but my thought would be if we would go for naming the street Cope Way, because it has been the practice and hope to use the last name of the person being honored. That might be a good way to stay consistent, and I don't believe there's any other Cope families in the community at this point anyway, so it would still be pretty self-explanatory who we're honoring. I don't know if council is amenable to that, or we could certainly do the Marv Cope Way, use the first name as well. Whatever council's wish is. Councilor Medlock?
That's good. I haven't been around Hope my whole life, but I do think that Marv Cope Way is is suitable. I just think it brings more attention to specifically who it is, so that's why I feel like that name is the best.
Okay, would you make that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion then, that we rename that portion Mark Way.
Okay. Councillor Medlock, and we have a Councillor Smith motion. Comments on the motion? Okay, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. And I think just for public information, I think there's only 1 or 2 residents on that road that will have an issue with changing of addresses, so there's minimal public inconvenience to making this happen.
The school division has agreed to
Cover the
underwrite
costs.
those expenses.
Yeah, so that's good. That was a generous offer. So item C, we have a report here from our Director of Finance regarding writing off mobile home property taxes. Mr. Cordes, if you could speak to this.
Thank you, Richard. As in the past, we've come across some of our certain mobile home properties that, I guess for lack of a better way to say it, disappear in the middle of the night, where they no longer physically exist on the pad that they were originally set on. So my staff has brought forward a couple for this year that we know that they no longer physically exist. The property owners are long gone, and there's balances owing on their tax account. Since there's no physical improvements on it, BC assessment will no longer going forward be assessing these properties. So in order to write off these taxes, we need a resolution of council that we're requesting the minister to confer the power to the council of the District of Hope to write off these 2 rolls. And then we forward this resolution off to Victoria and they go through their process. And if we're successful from them, we're able to write them off. There's no point keep them on the books, we'll never collect anything. All it's going to do is continue to accrue interest that we'll never recoup, and it's just misleading on our financial statements as far as interest income stuff. The 2 properties there are on 63071 Flood Hope, number 1937. As I mentioned, there's no assessment. The folio will be deleted for next year, and therefore they are uncollectible.
Okay. Thank you. And Councillor Brown?
Thanks. That's just the buildings. There is no property. They're on pad rentals, is that it?
Yeah, like we collect the taxes on the actual whole park.
Right.
Like whoever owns the park pays their
Right.
taxes, but we don't have any we can't tax sale a mobile home because there's no related folio to it.
I see.
Like, there's no land associated with that because it's all as a group.
Right. Okay.
Folio for the land.
No problem. Thank you for that.
So just,
Councillor Erickson?
yeah, through you again, I just was on the same thing as Councillor Don. So the mobile home park pays the taxes on the pad,
Well,
but the mobile home
the
is
mobile
not-
home, the folio that the mobile home in the assessment roll will be under whoever's name owns it, the actual mobile home itself. So they're getting taxed on improvements. And so these 2 particular properties haven't been paying for basically it looks like 2009 up to the present.
because the mobile home's been moved off.
Well, just recently, like it's come to our staff's attention that these physically are not there anymore. Like the other ones that are still there, we keep trying to collect, and you know, one of these days it may come to small claims or whatever. But as long as there's a physical building there, we have a recourse. But these are disappeared.
Midnight move?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have nothing that we can do to
Okay, so seeing that, perhaps a motion on the table would be in order.
Second.
Okay, Councillor Erickson moving, Councillor Crop seconding. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, no committee reports, mayor and councillor reports, I'll keep this fairly short, we still have a fair bit to go through here. Just an acknowledgement that Councillor Stewin is double booked tonight. This happens once a year or so with Stewin, and she has an important matter to attend to tonight, so that's where she is. She sends her best, and she wishes she could be here as well. So we have a very special guest with us tonight. We have young Connor here. He is a grade 5 student. The gentleman on the back there, he has an extreme interest in mayor and council business. And so I had the opportunity to spend a little time with him today, a few hours, and toured him around the district hall and talked to some key people in the community. And very impressed. I don't think I was as sharp in grade 5, so I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing to admit before an election, but I definitely was impressed with his questions and the quality of his insight in the community, and certainly hope he stays interested in the community, so keep with it, Connor. Yeah. And I guess special thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for the all candidates meeting, and the Hope Standard, and anyone else that participated in making it happen. George Rice was a good moderator. I think it's a good opportunity for all candidates to get the word out as to what they stand for and what they feel should happen in the community. And I know now with YouTube and with taping it, a lot of people have watched it online. I think it was like 2,500 or something, which I was pretty impressed with actually. That shows a lot of interest in the community. So although some people didn't have time to come out in the evening physically, they were certainly able to view it, so that was very good. And I guess a little note on the election. Obviously, it's the advanced polls on the 10th and the 17th. Very important to keep those in mind. The 20th, I hope there's good voter turnout. The one cautionary note that I would issue to everyone, though, some people say, well, you got to vote for 6, so I know 2 that I really like, and I'm just going to pick another 4. And I would just encourage everyone to do research. There's some really good people running, so I'm certainly not one to, comment to the contrary. But I think it still is important that when you vote with some level of insight, because Russian roulette is not necessarily a good thing in politics. So I think an informed voice is a good one. So if you only have time to pick out a couple and you're unaware of the others, then you don't have to vote for 6. So I just think it's good to vote with information. So that's a friendly point there, I think. The other thing is, our staff was very friendly as usual a little while ago. And there's a lady here who's very artistic in our community, and her name is Eleanor Burnside. And she put together some nice art for us, and it says in our District of Hope, meets needs, great support, great customer experience, wonderful service. So I have a sneaky suspicion we have a satisfied customer here, based on the amount of time it took to make that artwork. So Ms. Bellingham said we're definitely going to have to hang that up in District Hall, so maybe we can make sure that Ms. Burnside knows that her artwork goes very much appreciated, and that definitely took more talent than I have, so we'll just proudly display that. And thank you for that. So maybe start off with Councillor Crop under Councillor's reports.
Thank you. I don't have too much to report. It seems like time is flying by here, but it's the silly season, as everyone knows, and our mayor and just talked about the all candidates. And I'd just like to thank everyone that came out. Wow, that was a cold evening, and it was very long for the all candidates. And the mayor's was a little warmer, and the questions were interesting for the 3 candidates there, and really encourage everyone to watch those meetings. If you didn't have an opportunity, it really gives a little bit of insight on who knows what and who's who in the zoo. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Erickson.
Yeah. So I attended the Telecom Committee, and that committee is put together by members of the telecom group, and they're looking to find accommodation for their clients, and they're thinking of, they've been working for a couple months now trying to get someone to come on board to build some type of low income housing along with senior housing and merge their clients in with the senior housing, so that, because a lot of the parents are getting old, and the children still, they're getting old too, of course, but the parents, it's harder for the parents to look after these young people. So they're thinking if they could get a senior complex or some type of multifamily type complex together, low income, would work good with their young people. I also attended Hope Active Response Table at the Heart Committee, and I was really impressed with how many people are showing up to that committee. It's chaired by Councillor Nigel. Well, one chair, Councillor Nigel. I think she will chair it. She did a good job chairing it. But I was really impressed by how many participants in that committee from all parts of our community. And it's a really committee that's really moving forward on trying to deal with the homeless and those who are out sleeping in the woods and the drugs, and they're trying to put it all together. It's a really, and I'm proud to be part of it. And that's all I have to report today.
Sounds good, Councillor Erickson. Councillor Medlock.
Thank you. I'm just looking back at my notes from the Advantage Hope meeting. That was after the last council meeting. So they continue to be working on their branding of Advantage Hope itself, because they've never actually gone through that process. They've let the community and everybody else decide their messaging, and they want to change that and a bit more of a focus on the local residents as an audience for their brand. They've done a really good job of projecting their voice outwards to be beyond our community and have an excellent reputation there. But they do see the need to do some work within the community, so that's something they're working on. And they've rebranded even their social media outlets as Tourism Hope is now Hope Cascades and Canyons. They're going to continue to push that messaging out there. And it's all good stuff. A few good things that they're working on too is they're involved with Free Reign Associates and doing some training. So they've got some board members volunteering their time along with our manager, Sarah, and Patrick Earl will be actually doing some teaching for some part of a program that Free Reign offers. So that's pretty good to get the volunteer people out there involved. And there's some sort of news, I guess, that they've been successful in, the FBRD has been successful in attracting the South Coast Women's Hockey League to have a tournament here in Hope, March 28th to the 31st, which is going to bring a couple hundred people to the community, and hotels will be full, and it's really good to sort of promote Hope and the quality of the ice that we have and all those good things. So it's nice to see a bit more into the shoulder seasons, a bit more promotion going on. And they are continuing to work hard with the MRDT, which is the hotel tax. So far they have, well, as of that meeting, they had 10 signatures, which represented 42% of the rooms and 34% of the businesses. They require 51% of the rooms and 51% of the businesses. So they're focusing on 3 or 4 other hoteliers to get on board, but they're still definitely aggressively pushing that, because not only would that 2% hotel tax bring some revenue in to do with tourism marketing, which frees up the dollars that they're currently using for that, but it's just one more step into the piece of the puzzle that we could perhaps apply for the Resort Municipality Initiative funding, which is a pool of money that some communities in the province, like Sun Peaks and Whistler and Victoria, get to use for, because they're tourist destinations, they can use those funds for infrastructure, like repaving roads or putting in cobblestone sidewalks or things like that. So, but having the hotel tax is a prerequisite to getting that. So those are some of the things they're actively working on. Again, the All Candidates meeting, I was happy to see how many people showed up and how many people watched it online. Just remember to vote. Tomorrow is the first opportunity right here in this room, I would imagine. And yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Medlock. Councillor Dial.
Good, thank you. Well, let me take this opportunity. 2 meetings left. I just want to say thank you to the staff. I mean, 7 years, it feels like a lifetime sometimes, and other times it's not. But just think that we have a great staff in place for the District of Hope. A lot of initiatives. I mean, look at the last council meeting, how many development permits we had. So great work going on in the district. At the last council meeting, Councillor Stoon had said something in regards to me leaving the council table when we had, when there was an issue that was brought up that I felt I was in a conflict of interest. And I need to clarify what she had said and what she meant, because we had a conversation after. Her comment was that I should never feel ashamed leaving the table when it comes to a social issue. And I took that and I thought, what do you mean by that? We had a conversation after, and I don't think she meant it the way she said it, but for clarity's sake, whenever you sit at the council table, if you feel you are in a conflict or a perceived conflict, I feel it necessary to remove myself from the table. We walk a very thin line, and I feel I walk a very thin line in this community as executive director for a large nonprofit and sitting on council. When issues of housing come to the table, I feel I need to leave, because when a developer is coming into town to talk about low-income housing, they come to our agency first and ask what's going on in the community about low-income housing and housing needs. So I'm already in a conflict of interest immediately because I already had a conversation with them. And if the community knew that that conversation had taken place, then they're going to put me under the microscope and say, you pushed that through because you had that relationship, or you're going to benefit by that in some way. So I think that as you move forward, new council members coming on, you need to be very careful about the perceived conflict of interest, because we all know that there's people out there who want things to fail. They just do. That's their nature, that's their intent. They don't want to see success, and they want to find criticism somewhere. So for me, that's why I leave the table. I wasn't at the public hearing today because Doug Duncan, his wife, works for me. So I'm not going to sit at a public hearing and have a vote on something that one of my employees works for me. So I think that that's why I leave the table when there is anything that remotely reflects social issues that I'm affected by and I can have influence over. So I don't think Heather meant it the way she said it, but for clarity's sake, I think it's important that the community know that I am never ashamed to talk about social issues. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I will continue to do it until I retire, which I wish it was next week, but it's not. But I certainly am the advocate for the social issues in our community. So I wanted to set the record straight with regards to that comment, because it didn't sit well with me, and her and I did have a conversation about it after. But just for new council members coming in, you need to be very cautiously aware of conflict of interest when you sit at this table, because you don't want anybody to say that you have influence over something or you're benefiting by something. So with that said, the shelter, the emergency shelter, we were going to open today, and the linens only arrived this afternoon, and stuff is happening. So we will open tomorrow. And again, it's one of those things where the community has got a microscope on it. And I know that there's people in the community that want to see it fail. And there's nothing that they're going to do that they're ever going to see that is going to be a benefit to this community. But I can tell you that we're not going to solve homelessness, and we're not going to shelter everybody in the community. We have 20 beds, and there's way more homelessness in the community that we can actually fill those 20 beds with. So if you see people on the streets and you're wondering, why isn't HAT sheltering those people? The reality is 20 beds, we could, by tomorrow, will be filled with 20 people in those beds. And then there will still be people in the community who won't have a bed to sleep in. So I think that, you know, you need to recognize that homelessness is not going away. 20 beds isn't going to solve the issue. And you guys got some big decisions to make in the coming months and years when it comes to homelessness and social issues. So wanted to let you know that. Other than that, the community has been great in donating things. We put out a call, a request, and I just think that the community needs to recognize that this is your shelter. It's not HAT's shelter. We operate it.
but it's your tax dollars that are operating it. And I think it's very important that you recognize that, you know, your coffee urn is being used and your towels are being utilized by folks who don't have towels. So I so appreciate the people who've come and they've dropped off stuff and they've showed up and they said, how can we help, how can we do this? Greatly appreciated. And we will have an opening, a grand opening. Won't be until the spring though. We just need to get through the winter months and then have a grand opening in the spring, and the community will be welcome to attend. That's it.
Councillor Dowell, I just have a question. So if a person's sleeping on the streets and he goes in, he or she goes in for the night, do they claim that for the next week or two? Is that theirs for the next short term until they can find housing? Is that?
Yeah,
how
I
does that
think,
work?
yeah,
Is it
so
just one night?
no, it's not. And it can be longer periods of time. And I think what the community needs to recognize is that there are some folks that live in this community that we are just not able to house. They are just unhousable. And we can't have 20 beds full of unhousable individuals. We need to have a continuum of folks who are in the emergency shelter who can work with our homeless outreach team in finding housing. Because we know that we can fill it right away with the hard to house and the unhousable, but then we don't have any beds for, you know, individuals who find themselves, you know, in dire straits and are homeless. So we need to be very cautious because there's people out there who all of a sudden saw, you know, seen the article and it's like, I'm coming, I want to be there. But we also know that there's folks that we've worked with that we can't house them. And then if they come into the shelter, they're there until supportive housing comes or they get themselves kicked out, right?
So not housable, your definition of that would be someone that has violent tendencies, perhaps, or?
You know, they're actively engaged in their mental health and addiction, so they can't maintain a home independently. So the only way that they're going to, you know, have a home is if they go into supportive housing, which is, you know, the next phase for the community. But yeah, so they, you know, use their monies for, you know, their substance use. They're just not capable of maintaining self, right? Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, making your report so long. I just wonder, so there's, from the report I read, I guess there's around 60 homeless people, so there'll be roughly 40, some of them unhousable, some of them housable. So is it on a rotation where the intake person will assess and say, okay, so as soon as there's a bed, you're in?
We don't save beds.
Okay.
Yeah, so that won't happen because we don't know when it will become available.
Right.
60 is in the region, so that's including Agassiz, Bolton, Boston Bar. And that was 2 years ago, was that report out, I think? Yeah, so I mean, that number could be up or down, dependent on, you know, where we're at and the time of year that report is, or that survey is done. Yeah, we don't save beds, and certainly if a person leaves and doesn't come back for 2 nights, we'll clean their bed and that bed will be available for the next person.
And so if that function of the 20 beds is filled on a regular contingency, then does that mean that the other 2 properties that are have been bought for future use will be up and running sooner rather than later?
I can't speak for BC Housing. Yeah. I was at a meeting today, so you know, I think that they're working because the supportive housing units are going in across the province.
Right.
So I think that they're sort of prioritizing, but I can't speak for them.
So there's no real timeline at this point?
No.
Okay, thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Smith.
Well, hats off to you.
Use
a Wilford
Pun
joke.
intended.
Use a Wilford joke on that one. Attended the all candidates meetings on the 3rd and the 4th. Want to thank Chamber of Commerce and Standard and the Rec Center as well for the great event. Yeah, I think it was good. It's nice to see more people get engaged. I think we have the same amount of candidates for the councilors as we did previous terms, so I think it's going to be an interesting next 10 days. I hope people get out early, and if anybody, I know there's been a few people in the community that have voiced that if people need rides and stuff like that, they're willing to do it, so go on Facebook if they can. There's numbers around there post, if somebody needs a ride or can't get to it for the advanced polling and the 20th as well, so check that out, and other than that, I got nothing else to report.
Okay, sounds good. Just a couple of quick things, they're just topping off the reports. Purple Lights campaign, special thanks to Councillor Stewart for inviting me to that, and Marianne Rupert and the rest of the crew there for putting that together. I like the approach that the Purple Lights group is taking. It's talking about domestic violence in different forms. It's just talking to the kids about getting involved in relationships that are not healthy. So it doesn't necessarily mean that Purple Lights campaign is only campaigning against domestic violence. It's emotional abuse and mistreatment and so on. And it's nice that they're reaching out to young people, because I think some people, particularly if they have some awkward dynamic at home, they may not by themselves recognize what leads to domestic violence and so on. So I think they're taking a whole holistic view of how that goes about. And tying into Councillor Erickson's point about the Telecom group, I attended that meeting as well, and it was, I'm very passionate about seeing some housing for the Telecom residents sooner than later, because I fully appreciate the initiatives pertaining to housing for folks with addiction issues and so on, but we have lifelong residents of people with developmental delays, and most of them have done their very best to actually serve our community in different capacities as best they can. And I think they certainly do it. They deserve the red carpet treatment as far as I'm concerned. So, that's something I hope whoever gets elected as council and mayor, ourselves or other people, I hope they're all equally passionate about looking at that as a priority in the next year or two, because there is money available out there, and we have good groups like, for instance, Yanhart. Pick on Crystal Weed because she's here with her son Connor, and there are good nonprofits that have a compassion for helping others. So I certainly think there's lots of opportunity. If council's amenable to it, I'm sure we can figure something out in the near future. And then the Heart Group, I think that's kudos to Councillor Dybel and anyone that attends that meeting, because I think that's a very sort of a mature look at homelessness and addictions and so on and so forth. And it's not an easy topic to deal with, but it has to be dealt with, and I guess baby steps are necessary. We can't solve it all, but when you have the right people in the room, good things happen, so thanks for that. Okay, that's it for that, and we're moving on to item 8A, and that would be permits and bylaws.
And I'm gonna step out for that.
Okay, we can do that. Please let the record note. District of Hope Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 1434-2018 pertaining to 755 Old Oak Princeton Way, the MQSH Society. Motion that the District of Hope Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 1434-2018 be adopted in order to reestablish the property legally described as 755 Old Hope Princeton Way from highway commercial to urban suburban residential. Motion that effect, please. Okay. Councillor Crop and Councillor Smith. Tie game there. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Oh, we still got a couple more motions here. We'll call you in. Yeah, there's two more motions here pertaining to. Yeah. Okay, item B, District of Hope Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1435-2018 pertaining to 755 Old Hope Princeton Way for MQSH. And that is that the District of Hope Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1435-2018 be adopted in order to amend Section 10.5 multifamily residential RM1 zone, subsection 10.5.5, to include new column for apartment or senior housing and other multiple building structures combined, and to rezone the property legally described at 755 Old Hope Princeton Way from highway commercial C2 to multi-family RM1. Motion that effect, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Councillor Crop and Councillor Medlock. Questions or comments?
I got one.
Okay.
When are they planning on starting? Do they have any start times? Do they have any tentative start dates?
Your worship, through you, during the public hearing was made that the plan was to start it during the 2019 year. It was sort of pending upon also grant approval.
Okay. Sooner the better is good. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Item C, we have a District of Hope zoning amendment bylaw number 1437-2018. This is pertaining to an application to rezone the property at 442 Hemlock Avenue for Rescom Limited. Suggested motion the District of Hope zoning amendment bylaw 1437-2018 be given third reading in order to rezone the property legally described at 442 Hemlock Avenue from single-family residential RS1 to single-family residential with secondary dwelling RS1S. Motion to that effect, okay?
Second.
Councillor Erickson, Councillor Smith, comments? Comments? Yeah. You know, I'll reluctantly go along here. This isn't, it looks like a pretty small parcel, actually. You know, when you drive by in the lane, it's, but,
Yeah.
yeah, it's long, yeah.
There's quite a bit to the one side, let's see, south side, I believe. I'm just saying this because I live there.
Yeah, no, yeah, obviously you have the insight there. When I drove by in the lane, it didn't look very big, but maybe I didn't get the context of it right. Councillor Erickson.
So I saw the drawing on the map, plot plan, and it fits. It's just a small little thing that's only like 25 by 25, the house, and the garage is another, what, 12 by 25, something like that. So it's really small.
Yeah.
But it fits.
Yeah. Okay, motion's on the table. I think one of the advantages to doing this, even though it tests our comfort zone a little bit, is at least the property owner is doing something by the book, so to speak, because there are a lot of, you know, unregistered secondary suites that people do on the sly and don't follow regulations. So I would see that as being one benefit to this year. Although the property would be nice if it was a little bigger, but at least they're doing it by the book. So I kudos to them for doing that, as opposed to certain folks that just kind of throw a second suite in there and hope they don't get caught, kind of thing. So, okay, motions on the table. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Please note Councillor Dybal's coming back in. And item D, District of Hope zoning amendment bylaw 1438-2018 regarding an application to rezone the property at 63870 Flood Hope Road for Sidhu Foster. Recommended motion that District of Hope zoning amendment bylaw 1438-2018 be given third reading in order to rezone the approximate northern 0.26 of a hectare portion of the property legally described at 63870 Flood Hope Road from local commercial C1 to entirely commercial C2. No? No, I did. Yeah. No. So, okay, Councillor Erickson, Councillor Smith. All those in favor? Mr. Gill, you just lost a foot and a half down.
Kind of
Stand up
sucks,
now.
You started doing the elevator thing, I heard.
Yeah.
kind of sucks, doesn't
Okay, motion's on the table. All those in favor? Thank you. Notice I did not stand up during this council meeting. Item E. Report from our Director of Corporate Services pertaining to fees and charges amendment bylaw. And Ms. Bellingham, we're adopting it, but just for folks that haven't seen this before in the audience, why is it so exciting?
We're getting a second columbarium for the cemetery, so that's implementing the new costs for the columbarium that are at the current rates today. So columbarium 1, which we already have in place, will be still sold off at the current value, and then the prices for the second one will be based on today's pricing, for the cost of what it, to purchase it and everything. And then we just corrected an error on the RCMP service fees.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cordy? No, I didn't say anything.
Waiting for you to say it.
Okay, no, I won't, okay. What's that? I will not make a lifetime membership comment, that will not be. Okay. So, motion on the table, please. Okay, okay, Councillor Smith. And the seconder?
Second.
Okay, Councillor Dybel. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Thank you to staff for doing that. Now we have a rather lengthy worded motion here, but it has to be done. So that is development variance permit for 62890 Flood Hope Road, Curve Properties. That council approved the issuance of a development variance permit to vary the maximum interior height requirement of a mini storage facility from 3.5 meters to 5.5 meters, and also vary the maximum unit area of a mini storage facility from 28 meters to 82 square meters for the property legally described at 62890 Flood Hope Road to enable the owner to proceed with the construction of RV and boat storage buildings, and further that for the purposes of Section 504 of the Local Government Act, substantial start shall mean the placement of a foundation for any of the contemplated structures, and further that the Director of Community Development be authorized to endorse the development variance permit and associated documents. So moved. Okay.
Second.
Councillor Medlock moving, and Councillor Crop seconding. Questions or comments?
Just one thing.
Okay, comment from Councillor Crop.
If they're doing any, I think they're going to be cleaning RVs, is that right?
Your worship, there could be the option on that to happen.
So is there some kind of groundwater information that they should know about in order to make sure that it's a clean runoff?
Your worship, through you, they would have to have some sort of filterization system out there. There is no community water out there, so they would have to recycle the water somehow, but it would have to be, I guess, designed by an engineer or a qualified professional.
So is that, did they go through you to do this?
Once that phase is enacted,
Yeah.
as a part of their building permit process, I don't believe it's part of the first phase, it's later on.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries. Thank you. Item 9A, motion to receive correspondence.
So moved.
Moved and seconded, Councillor Smith and Dybel. Motion's on the table. All those in favor? Thank you. Question period from the public relevant to the agenda.
During this round of elections, I talked to quite a few people, and a lot of people in the community do not realize that there's an opportunity for them to come and speak at the end of the council meeting regarding what happened in the council. I just wonder if there's any way we could get that out, so people could come and speak things regarding to the items on council. I've talked to quite a few people, and they don't realize that they have the opportunity to come and speak. So, I mean, it's just something that.
Yeah, it's certainly
I've heard
something,
several times.
something that the council can look at in the future. That we've tried to be.
Tried the coffee talk thing.
Yeah, we tried to, I mean, that coffee with council thing was not bad, but we ended up drinking a lot of coffee and didn't get a lot of public feedback for that part of things. But yeah, we can certainly, in the future, whoever gets in, ourselves or others.
I'll take that on board, your worship, to bring up to new council as far as considerations.
Yeah. And I guess I'd just like to finish off by obviously encouraging everyone to vote, as everyone has echoed already. But I just have to say that as last meeting before the election, of course, and I've very much enjoyed working with everyone around the table. There's been a lot of respect here. Being mayor for certain groups is awkward. This has not been an awkward group at all. It's been very good. And I was actually, I think, when I've gone to conferences this term, I've been the envy of some mayors, because not all council members have the same attitude to working as a team. And I have to say, I've been very honored to work with all of you. And I'll certainly, my hope obviously is that the dynamic of the council in future will, whoever that is, will have a similar dynamic of respect. And obviously, thank you through to the staff as well. You're all rock stars as far as I'm concerned. We have a very good name in the valley. I know anyone that has done business with us in the past 4 years is very impressed with the speediness of how we deal with things. And if we say yay or nay, they know fairly quickly. And since most of the requests have been common sense. We've been able to go with most of the business investment opportunities that have presented themselves to the district. So anyways, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing what the election results bring, and I wish everyone good luck. That's running for council, but my fellow mayoral competitors, I wish them good health but not good luck, because that wouldn't be sincere. So we'll just go with good health, but not good luck. So anyways, a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Okay, Councilor Pratt, moving.
Second.
Councilor Erickson, seconding.